you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning, late afternoon, early morning. Some of you, late afternoon, whatever it may be. It's 11 o'clock my time. It's Inside the Numbers, the New Year's Eve midday special. All right. We're going to go over another voter analysis like we did on Wednesday. We'll have Don on to discuss all of this year, which, by the way, polling shows is rated among the worst years ever. I don't think anybody needed me to tell them that, but 2020 was actually worse. But that's because I imagine there was a combination of things. Maybe you had Republicans who were pissed off about the election. They rated that year a bad year. You had, people suffering economically in the coronavirus, which, by the way, we will also be talking. It's Friday. We're going to be light today. It's New Year's Eve. We're going to be light today. This PCR stuff we'll talk about a little bit after we get over the voter analysis. I got to tell you, we have another year now where those of us from the beginning of this pandemic basically said, where the hell are all of the burden estimates for pneumonia and flu and RSV, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Where did those burden estimates go during the pandemic? I mean, you don't have to be a public health official. Anybody who knows how burden estimates work, they are significantly revised a year later, or even 2 years later on something like the flu. But they don't vanish. And especially in the start of this pandemic, there was this enormous decline among these diseases, which, by the way, we know are more deadly to the overall population. People don't really pay attention, but pneumonia is far more deadly to children than even the flu. And the flu is far more deadly than COVID to kids. And these burden estimates just vanished. It was just steep drop-offs across the board. And those of us who brought that up were met, of course, with ridicule and, oh my God, this conspiracy theorists again. Are you suggesting that flu and pneumonia and RSV burden estimates are in COVID case? Yes. Yes, I am. And you should be suggesting it too if you've ever seen CDC burden estimates. Well, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. I mean, the list of false positives, what could have thrown a false positive, was incredible. And now they're dumping this as of the new year, which many of these people who were in PCR said from the jump, this is not the best way. This guy comes every time this camera goes on. Was not the best way to deal with, identifying infections or current infections. But whatever, let me not jump ahead of myself. On Wednesday, we released the 2021 year-end voter file analysis model, and that was a very large net. How large? There included people in California who were 114 years old, multiple of them. I'll show you. So when we say exclude deceased and change of address flags, I tell you all the time, there are many, many more who are dead, who are recent movers and aren't eligible in certain states. Many more. The system lags. I say the same stuff over and over and over, but you have to. You have to drill it into people. Even though you can put that in the parameters of the query, it still is going to come. You're going to find some. They're on there. There are millions and millions and millions of them nationally. Millions. And the system always lags in taking care of it for two reasons. One, it's just kind of a logistics thing. But two, there are people who benefit from the voter rolls being dirty. They have no intention of cleaning them up. It serves them. It serves their purpose. They like having, extra records in case they need them. Let's cut the crap. California is third world. It's so bad. Third world. Anyone who wants to dispute me on that or debate me on it, come on the show. Come on the show, cowards. Come on the show. Put your little Twitter down, your little tweet smears down. Come on the show. We'll discuss it. We'll open up the voter files. We'll discuss it. We'll take a look at those particular records and we'll look at their vote history and we will discuss it. Are you seriously suggesting that people 110 years older and older are voting? Come on the show. So if you're a Locals member, which you should be, peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, then you would have the midterm model. You'll notice this midterm model, and we'll get into it now, actually. We'll start to pull it up. I don't know that. I mean, I'll show it to some people. You're not really going to be able to see it great, guys. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. And that's part of what it is to be a Locals member anyway. You can listen along and get all of the numbers. You can go through it and sift through it all you'd like. And then you will know exactly what it is we're talking about. So I know that people are going to say right now, hey, I can't see it. I can't see it. You're not going to be able to. It's small, and the only way you really can see it perfectly and sift through it is if you have access to that PDF. But I'll give you top line numbers. Try to follow along here, okay? In fact, let's see if I can. Nah, that doesn't really help, but still, whatever. Same thing here with Geo, the query parameters. State equals, and if you guys are database guys, MySQL kind of thing or MySQL kind of thing, you know what I'm talking. You'll be familiar with some of these terms, but basically what we're doing is the database is well over 200 million, and we're defining the parameters of a search that we want to do, and we're returning values based on those parameters. All right. This one is also, and I wrote that it was like a little bit more strict than Wednesday, but Wednesday was 197 plus million, almost 198 million records, excluding only the deceased, and again, like I said, deceased that we know, and change of address flags that we know of, because they were filed. They're certain, all right, recent movers. And that was it. And that came almost 198 million. When was the last time you saw 198 million people vote? You don't, because it doesn't exist. That electorate is not real. I was giving you kind of a maximum scenario, right? And it is true. Let me repeat this. It is true that these dirty records disproportionately favor Democratic voter registration. Why? Because the problems with the voter rolls are disproportionately in Democratic urban centers. Nevada is a great example. 70% of the vote statewide comes from Clark County, but 85% of the dirty voter records are in Clark County. That will be true if you go to Pennsylvania and you will look at Pennsylvania overall. 74% of the dirty vote in Pennsylvania, or dirty records, what should have been cleansed, what should have been cleaned up, what should have been, they use the word purged, but really validated is the word. Maintained is the word. You would see that comes from Philadelphia and Allegheny County, even though Allegheny is not nearly as bad as Philadelphia. Okay. And the same thing is true no matter where you go. Broward County in Florida, Wayne County in Michigan, even though Michigan, we found widespread problems with Michigan's voter records. All right. There are different states that interpret the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 differently. And not everybody acts accordingly. Right? There's no standardization for it. Look for Democrats in the new year, since Build Back Better is done. That's not happening. Look for Democrats to use a two-prong approach. Redistricting is one prong, a two-prong approach to save them from normal electorate swings. One is, again, redistricting. The second will be making it extremely difficult to roll back the exploitations they created in our election process. They will make it illegal for voter ID. They will try to do that, even though 80% of the country, almost nearly 8 in 10 voters, support voter ID. They will make it illegal to impose strict verification standards on absentee ballot mailing, even though there's the Equal Protection Clause in Bush v. Gore and all of that. They don't care. They will attempt to stop efforts to roll back widespread mail-in voting. Why? Because these records go out in vote by mail. Universal vote by mail includes these records. They don't do a check to see whether there's, they're excluding people who are ineligible. They're not doing that. That's why you people know the millions of pictures, probably, let's say thousands. We got thousands of pictures of people who said they got this many ballots were sent to this address. These people were sent to their address. Residents who haven't been apart, who haven't lived at that address in 20 years. You know it, I know it, it happens. And it happened. They want those ballots flying all over the place. They want absentee ballot applications flying all over the place. That's their goal. So they can have harvesters either bring them back, or if they have a ban on ballot harvesting in their state, no problem. Georgia was stupid enough to increase the number of drop boxes they have. They'll get their guys to go grab those ballots and throw them in drop boxes. There's no other way some of this stuff could have happened. And it was those conditions were created intentionally. So I'm being very generous here when I tell you that when I say strict, I mean they simply have a probability turnout score in a midterm general election that equals at least 50%. That is the simple parameter that we added to this midterm, and it's a midterm general election. What it returned was 121,094,373 records. That includes 83,150,332 unique households, 71,960,091 unique addresses, 40,587,863 unique landlines, 59,495,671 unique mobiles, and 53,117,104 emails. Remember what we were do you remember what we were talking about with the mode if you were watching on Wednesday? We're almost on parity now with email records. There is something called PII, personal identifiable information. And you do need a voter's okay to be able to email them and solicit them to take a survey. At some point, you can get it in different ways. Send a text message, is it all right? Whatever it may be. But we're almost at, the difference between mobiles and emails are almost at parity, is my point. And the party split, which we can go down and take a look at here. 1 second. Give me 2 seconds. Crazy party codes, I know. And locals, I forgot to give you guys the key. I got to give you guys the key. So you understand how we got to, in this one, a much lower percentage of third-party voters. All right. Let me see if I can pop myself up here, guys, so you can see. Which one is the rich picture-in-picture one? There we go. Where you at, Laura? Jeez, you there? That's all right. That's all right. This is the rich picture-in-picture. Okay, so I know you guys really can't see that, but people who have their PDFs can check and follow around, basically, follow along. But generally in this one, what we saw was a much smaller number of third-party voters. So whether or not it's like United Utah in certain states, or tax reform in Florida, or just typical independent registrations in New York, they have conservative registrations. And I should have turned that off. Sorry about that, Laura. So basically, we went over this on Wednesday. This one is a lot less, though, because we're talking about a midterm electorate. We're not going to be seeing, 5 to 7% of third-party voters in a midterm electorate. Can it happen? Sure, because we don't know exactly who's going to turn out yet. I love you, Laura. Nice private little message there. And I'm just seeing some stuff. I'm sorry if I seem a little bit distracted. There's just some stuff going on that I don't know. The people in this business, man, you just never know what they're capable of, and then something happens with somebody, then you hear about, hey, did you hear about this? And you're just like, oh my goodness. It's a weird world. It's a really weird world. But nothing ever shocks me anymore. Nothing surprises me anymore. So someone who purports to be something and then turns out to be something totally, which is fine, to each his own. Just don't purport to be something. It's just whatever. I'm not going to get into it, but it is distracting a little bit because I'm being bombarded by messages about it. Okay, so let's get back to let's get back to the regularly scheduled program. This one is a little bit different. You're going to see a higher partisan identification than you would in the national model, which is, you would say all records, no matches. What we're looking for here were records that we know, we know people's vote history, whether or not they turned out, and how likely they are to turn out in a midterm. So it is going to be bigger. I think in 2018, we saw about 110 million, close to roughly 110 million, if I remember correctly, turnout. And a general election for a presidential year, 16 was 137, 20 was just unbelievable, frankly. But let's just call it what it is. Like 145 to 150, even though, Obama was elected with 120 million like this. Right? So keep things in their context. And in this electorate, you're probably not, well, not probably, you won't, which is why inference matters. You're not going to see a great breakdown of what, if you were to ask people, the electorate of would look like by party. So maybe the model will identify somebody as a Democrat or an independent, whatever it may be. But if you were a pollster or an exit pollster and you ask them, they would tell you something different that particular time. So, just take that with a grain. An independent may say they're a Democrat or a Republican because they are voting that way this year, or a Democrat may be a registered Democrat, but in fact voted Republican and then said, we'll say in North Carolina, for instance, tell you that they're a Republican when they're not, right? Registration wise. But it does show you what happens when you get more strict with the parameters in the query. Okay. So it hurts Democrats in registry. It just does. That's a reality. Why? Because again, their records are not as complete. The more the record is questionable, the more Democratic it is. That's just the Democratic registrations make up the most ineligible or least match records. Right? So the more strict you get with the parameters, the more Republican the electorate becomes. All right. So with all of those households we just went through, Democrats made up 39%. The inference of that was 15%. Why does that matter? Because we know somebody asked a great question on Wednesday. What if I'm a Democrat, but I donated to Donald Trump? You will still show as a Democrat. There are some people where the inference modeling is concerned with states that don't have registrations or records that may be, incomplete or whatever, and they're looking at different activity, right? So that's really where inference comes in. And why does that matter? Because it can show you which way, which party has a little bit more of an advantage, even though the registration number may be smaller. Last year, it was better for Democrats. The inference was much closer. This year, in both models, inference for Republicans much higher. So it tells you in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Virginia, the states with no registrations by party, it's getting more Republican. The inference modeling is more Republican. So 39% total, also Republicans. So it's an even electorate here with 121 million. Inference with Republicans is 19%, which I believe is way higher than last year. I think last year was 14 and change or something. I have to go back and look, but this is high. And then 20% that we basically knew were Republicans. Independent, down from the modeling Wednesday, 20%. Third party, 2%. All right. Third party, much smaller. Much smaller than you would see in a national general election. When we poll nationally, you'll continue to see the third party is higher than what you're seeing here. And we're just going to do that. We're going to continue to do that. It's a national general election electorate. When we get closer and we start to apply more, strict likely voter screen, that may change. And it typically does. It just did when we've been polling for a couple of districts. And when we do apply a screen, you see this shrink. And then what happens when you see this area of the electorate shrink? Undecideds or someone else's shrink along with it. Because they make up the lion's share of those people who say, well, not lion's share, but you're not going to see as many Republicans or Democrats tell you they're going to vote for someone else or they're undecided as you do for independents and mostly third-party voters. They're always the most undecided. They're always the most likely. Of course, it makes sense to say that they're going to vote for someone else. Because they may be thinking, I'm a libertarian. I'm going to vote for the libertarian on the ticket. If there's not a libertarian, I'm going to vote for somebody else, an independent or whatever it may be. And Democrats were very good at putting and pushing independent candidates in certain districts all across the country in 18 in order to win the House. We actually did a show on this. How many independent candidates accounted for the margin of error in certain districts? And there were a lot of them, quite a few of them. It was smart. The studies, the literature for years shows that there is an area of the electorate. It's a low probability turnout group. And if they come out to vote, they vote Republican. If they come out to vote and there's another alternative on the ballot, like a Ross Perot, they'll vote in big numbers for that person, for that particular candidate, because they don't really identify as Republican, but they definitely lean to the right. But they're not traditional Republicans because they don't agree with tax cuts for the rich and giving business breaks, and deregulation is not their priority because, in fact, they may look at certain industries and businesses, say they have an unfair competitive advantage. So I would favor, a regulation in place that reins them in. Right? They think about like a Teddy Roosevelt kind of Republican. They don't believe in foreign intervention. They hate foreign intervention. It's the voter that George W. Bush was able to bring back against Gore, which won him New Hampshire, by the way. And then he lost in 2004. He prevailed because he brought out 3.5 million more voters, many more Democrats, and they just so happen to vote for George W. Bush instead of their own guy. That's why he won. Not because, there was some that and values voting, but, All right, so with that in mind, I'm actually not going to go over all of this today because there's something else I want to talk to you about. And I got the permission of the client to speak about it because it's now the 3rd district poll. And there's very clearly a pattern. And I want to explain that in more detail. But yeah, you guys can rifle through this, check it out. You'll notice one more thing I will say. It does get more Protestant, for instance. You'll look at religion and, check out it's 52% Protestant, which bodes very well for Republicans. By region, you see the Northeast, most liberal part of the country. It goes from 17% of roughly 17% to little under 16%. So, and the South, is 37. It doesn't really change. The differences in the West and the Midwest takes a little bit from the Northeast. And that, again, it is good for Republicans. So, yeah, take some time to go through it. And there'll be another one. I just didn't like. We released this one first because I really didn't like the more tightly matched general election one that we have. I guess I'm going to put it out. I just wanted some more time to go through it, but I'll just, blow the whistle. It was about D+2. But there are a lot more records that, again, it's not a perfect world because the voter files are always lagging, but I know there are records in there that really aren't eligible. And I was trying to find the right parameter that would boot them, but even at it, so if I get too strict with names, addresses, birthdays, if I get too strict with it, it drops it down to an electorate that looks like 2012. Close to this, actually, very close to this. And if I'm not strict enough, it gets to an electorate that is even more than 2020. It's just unrealistic a little bit. But in the end, I'm just going to put it out. It'll probably be around 140 million, something like that. All right. And it's D+2. Spoiler alert. It's 3735. So again, no world, no universe where there's anything resembling some of these polls that you see. And don't tell me it is affiliation. And that's why it's D+9 or D+11. Independents and third-party voters, when you call them, are not affiliating as Democrats. Democrats are having a very difficult time with this group right now. There are actually some states where we saw Republican voters change registration, go independent. So we're seeing some of that swelling again of the independent, right-leaning independent vote. But when you call them, we poll almost every single day. There is no place where I am seeing independents lean to the left more so than they did last year. Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. Massive swings. Just wrapped up a poll in a district last night. And we were done polling by last night. I was just going through it. And Biden won this district 54-44. All right, by about 10 points. When we asked about vote history, who did you vote for? And we know they voted in 2020, but who did you vote for? It's about 54-40. So it actually correctly, shows Joe Biden's margin, but underestimates Donald Trump's by about 4 points. The independents told us, and let me look at it real quick. Here we go. The independents told us they voted 45-44 for Donald Trump in this district, which is probably right because Donald Trump couldn't have gotten this close. It was a heavily, if you just look at raw registration, a heavily Democratic area. About 16% of Republicans told us they voted for Joe Biden. And that makes sense to me when I'm looking at some. This is one of 3 now very diverse districts we've been polling and this one is particularly Hispanic diverse, where we see some white Republican voters who Laura and I affectionately call wannabe elites, because they're metro, they make a lot of money, they're educated, they'll vote for Mitt Romney. They're like, yuppies. Sorry if you are one. I mean, I'm over here wearing a Gap sweat, but give me a break. So I have no other way to accurately characterize these people. So I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm simply just trying to be accurate in my characterization of them. And the sweater vest wearing Republicans guys at the golf course, right? Those Republicans who now really just resemble Democrats more so than Republicans, because it's just changing times, the era we're in. Anyway, this is very typical of what we're seeing across these districts, where these white Republican voters, some of them they even call themselves moderates, some do call themselves conservatives, but they're definitely more moderate in nature. Even some that will call themselves liberal, they would vote for a traditional Republican candidate. They did not vote for Trump in 2020. Now it's a different story. Now they either would vote for somebody else or they'd vote for Donald Trump, but they're not going to vote for Joe Biden if it's a rematch. And in fact, we've asked about other people too, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to think of Pete Buttigieg as a candidate again, but he was a presidential candidate before, and now he's the Department of Transportation, the secretary. So, him being unqualified for a position doesn't seem to stop him from running for or being appointed to these positions. So we've been adding him to some of these hypothetical matchups. It doesn't matter if it's him, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. It just doesn't matter. These people now thought Joe Biden was a moderate and don't see him as a moderate anymore. So they're moving away from Joe Biden. But the biggest movement is among Hispanics. I couldn't take my eyes off because if you follow our stuff, we ask detailed questions. So what is your race or ethnicity? Which race or ethnicity best describes you? And if you choose white, and it's a white enough population where we can do this, you'll be funneled off and we'll ask you, what is your national origin? We do the same thing with Hispanics. Are you Cuban? Are you Mexican? Are you Venezuelan? Are you Honduran? Are you El Salvadorian? Are you Colombian? Whatever it may be. Are you Spanish? Are you a Spaniard? We specifically do that on purpose. And the movement with Mexican men, particularly Mexican, this is why I'm getting specific. It's not just Hispanics. It is, but it's not just Hispanics. It really is among men, Mexican descent, who work or work part-time looking for full-time work, or unemployed looking for full-time work. So working Hispanic men. There has been in this particular district, there was movement among females as well, but it really is coming in bulk, in mass. We're seeing this movement with Hispanic men, working Hispanic men. And this district was interesting to me because, we've looked at other places, but Hispanics are not monolithic, right? And there are different areas around the country where Hispanics are more conservative than others. So maybe you would expect to see something. South Texas really shouldn't, shock you at this point. Clark County, how well Donald Trump is doing in Clark County, Nevada, for instance, among Hispanics, that shouldn't shock you. It's a little bit different. Florida, we all know the deal there, but out in some of the other more blue states, New Jersey, New York even, California, where there are going to be competitive districts, that matter to me because these are some of them are the most liberal Hispanic voting groups, Mexicans and Puerto Ricans. And we're still seeing that movement. So that is why I'm talking about it now, because it's significant. Were we only going to see movement among groups that really shouldn't surprise anybody? Venezuelans, Cubans, right? And Barnes and I have talked a lot about working Mexicans. When were they going to start shifting at all? If they were at all? We saw Youngkin win a plurality Hispanic House of Delegates seat, which is Hispanic votes not even that big in Virginia. This is real. Here's the problem for Republicans. While they are winning some of these yuppie white voters back, and they're appealing to other groups, which we'll get toward, they are not appealing to these working Hispanics. Not generic Republicans. What do I mean? The generic congressional ballot. So a generic congressional Republican candidate is not appealing to these groups like Donald Trump is. Is there some movement? Have they closed the gap somewhat? Yes, but it is not like Donald Trump. So Republican, the challenge for them, they're going to have to somehow become the party that does have enough of Trump where they don't turn off those other voters. That is the challenge for some of these congressional candidates in these states, and I would argue the party nationally. Because the truth is, the Republican establishment in districts like this, they hate their voters. They don't like them. They don't have any respect for them, and they don't want to be associated with them. Doesn't matter if they're white, Hispanic, Black, Asian, whatever it may be. We're talking about a socioeconomic status here, which they are almost ashamed to appeal to. They want back the respectable people, the decent Joe Biden voter. That is the sad truth about the Republican Party. And that's true of state parties, and that's true of national parties. Not all of them. The Florida Republican Party is, I mean, it represents their voter almost to the T. Are there problem areas? Of course. But they're not ashamed to welcome new Venezuelans. They're not ashamed to welcome working class Northeastern white migrants, or any migrant working class for that matter. They're not ashamed to open out their arms, to new urban Black men. They're like, the more the merrier, come on board. That is not true in some of these other state parties. Let's get real. Let's get real. Even in states like South Carolina. You think Lindsey Graham wants to represent working Hispanics who are the ones driving all of those damn houses they're putting up? You think Lindsey Graham would put the hard hat on and walk out into a construction site and break ground with the Peruvians? No, he wouldn't. It's all talk. And that's why 2022 is going to be so important for the Republican Party. They're going to have to get their identity together, and they're going to have to figure out what they want to be, who they want to be, what they want to do with it. Shoving aside Donald Trump is not going to work. And pretending to be the party of the working class and the family unit is not going to work. It has to be real. There's a flip side, and locals community, you know this already. They are outperforming Donald Trump among older, really 45 and older. Older, more educated Asian voters who basically hate Donald Trump. Which would you rather appeal to? And I'm not saying, look, you know me, I hate, casting any voter off if in some effort to appeal to voters. I don't like when parties ignore people, certain people. It's just bad for self-governance. But winning elections is a simple equation. And the idea, the goal, the name of the game is on net to increase the size of your coalition. If I add more of A, how will it impact B and C? Will it result in a net gain, or will C flee because I'm attracting A? I mean, it's not a difficult concept. So if you're looking at it, especially in the mid to long term, which group would you rather appeal to? Where is the future? Who is larger now? And by the way, who is currently yet to flex their electoral muscles? What do I mean by that? Asians vote. They vote in high rates. Hispanics do not. Asians are 4 to 6%. Hispanics could be fourfold that. And they're not voting at higher rates. Who is responsible for that? The working. The very voters that they have the chance to appeal to right now, who like Donald Trump. They like him. They're not turned off by his crassness. I think they would like somebody like a Ron DeSantis too. I do. I think we'll find out. We're going to find out in a year. It's a gubernatorial election. It's definitely different. But once Ron DeSantis wins re-election, then he will have a higher name recognition. There's just no doubt about it. And we'll start to look into that and study that. There's just no evidence of it right now, but they're not saying that it's not possible. Right now, these people know Trump. That's where, when they're making a comparison, they don't really associate him either with Republican as a party. They think like Donald Trump is his own thing. And how does that bear out? So again, let's go by race here, and I'm just going to give you a few details. So in 2020, in this particular area, very Hispanic area, majority Hispanic area, they told us 55% said they voted for Joe Biden, 37% said they voted for Donald Trump. That was then. Okay? Trump won whites in this district, although whites are a minority. He won them 50-47. Again, the overall district was about 54-44 Biden. About 2%. I think Joe Jorgensen and Howie, Hawkins. Very small percentage. What we did see in this polling, Trump, his real support, almost assuredly was in other candidate. Typically, people, and Joe Biden, some people we know voted for Joe Biden, said they voted other candidate. And we know that's not true. Those are people who now, Joe Biden's unpopular. So now they don't want to admit they voted for Joe Biden. There's certainly a stigma in an area like this where they would not want to admit they voted for Donald Trump. And excuse me if you hear my row in the background. It's New Year's Eve. What can I tell you? Laura laughing. I love him. He's adorable. He can scream all he wants. And he's not screaming. He's talking. Yay! Robo! See if he does it. You may not be able to hear it. I go, Robo. He'll go, Daddy! Although he does mommy more. Anyway, Joe Biden's approval rating in this district now, which he won by almost 54% plus of the vote, is now in the mid-40s. All right, so it's bad. His disapproval is about 49. So he's about negative 3-4 by all, when all said and done. I'm not looking at tens of percentages and doing it right now. But Donald Trump, his favorability is still negative, but it is much better. It's about 46%, much better than where it was before. All right, so he's about -3 in favorability. But approval and favorability are very different things. There were people who had an unfavorable opinion of Donald Trump, yet still approved of the job he was doing, especially on the economy. So it is something that's very different. All right. Democrats should win this district easily. On paper, if you're looking at it, you would think they would easily win this district. They are currently leading with Hispanics in this district 46-43, and I'm rounding. They're leading Republicans 46-43. That's a pretty big swing toward Republicans. It is. But Donald Trump is carrying them. He's actually carrying them. So the point is, who does? When you're looking at the horse trading of political coalitions and you're looking for opportunity on the map, who does better? By the way, 40% of white voters say they would vote Democrat. 47% say they're going to vote Republican. 48% white voters chose Donald Trump. 27 chose Joe Biden. You have 15.6 who chose someone else. if Trump was to carry Hispanics in a district like this, which is going to be about 55% Hispanic, I'm rounding, it's really like 53 and change, but let's say 55% roughly Hispanic. If he carries them by 2 points, let's say, and then carries whites by 20, this district is only 3% black, which he's taking 16% of anyway, but it's 3% black and about, I believe, 6% Asian, something like that. Asian other. How could he lose this district? Now, if you lose Hispanics and you barely carry whites, and Hispanics are almost twice as many, there are almost twice as many Hispanics in the district than whites, how the hell are you going to carry the district? I mean, this is not like difficult. It's just, I guess it's difficult for Republican establishment types to understand because they don't like these voters. Again, you have to keep this in mind when you try to put yourself in the mind of a Republican leader. It's easier for them to believe the other narrative. They want it to be true because they don't want to be the party of these people. No matter what they say, they don't want to be that party. They're ashamed by them. So everything else goes out the window. If we could just go back to winning 60% of whites, good luck. Especially in areas like this, where the working class is not predominantly white. Whites are more yuppie and educated. With their nose in the air. It's not possible. Well, it is. If the electorate is so skewed badly in your favor that it makes it look like you won that many whites. It is not at all likely. And this will only get to be more pronounced as time goes on, ladies and gentlemen. This problem for Republicans is only going to get worse. So it's a problem now. It could be their biggest boon if they handled it right. Which one would you rather be? The party of a shrinking majority, though you win that vote dominantly, or the party who, and by the way, you get crushed among the growing minority? Or would you rather be the party of the shrinking majority, just a smaller share of it, who is also dominating among the growing minority, the fastest growing minority group? Which one in your mind sounds better? It's almost like instant gratification or something. Right, Laura? What the hell? What is this mindset? Help me out here. It's like instant gratification. They want to win, and they want to win now at the expense of their electoral prospects in the mid to long term. And I'm saying they can win now in the short term while setting up the best prospects they have seen in years for the mid to long term. This is a no-brainer, Laura. This is a no-brainer. The only thing keeping them from seeing that is their disdain for the man who pointed them in this direction and their disdain for the voter themselves. Because no matter what they tell you, they do not want to be the party of the very people that they claim they need to do a better job reaching out to. That's bullcrap. They wanted to go back to 2012. They wanted to go back even, so somehow they're going to turn 2012 into 1980, 40 years later. They're losers. They are sure losers. How did San Diego go for you? How did Orange County go for you? That's Republican strategy in California right now. They're basically back against the wall with their arm, trying to hold their arms up while they're getting beaten against the ropes. And the ropes are like Orange County and San Diego. And they're fighting to keep their hands up while they just get clobbered by the Democratic coalition. Orange County didn't vote yes. San Diego County did not vote yes. The remaining bastion of white conservative voters. Fresno did. Merced did. The Valley did. I wonder why. Because of these people. And we're basically seeing that everywhere. There are even pockets in New York districts. I kid you not, ladies and gentlemen. Florida's a whole other ballgame, so that really doesn't surprise me. New York, areas of North Carolina where it's getting like the Republican coalition is getting more diverse. They blow this, they have nowhere to go. Like the neocon wing of the Republican Party, it has no future. You think Jonah Goldberg really wants to be the party of the Hispanic working family man in, Madera? Get real. I mean, seriously. You think they want to be the party of the Hispanic construction workers on Long Island? No, they don't. They want to be the party of stiff upper lip idiots. And that's, it's not going to, first of all, it's not going to happen. Second of all, it's not enough. Democrats are much smarter at looking at the map and saying, there's an opportunity, maybe not now, it may not look like it right now, but in 2 years, in 4 years, in 6 years, in 8 years, we're going to win that. They are so much smarter than Republicans at doing that. Because Democrats, I think, again, it's not that they're not disgusted by some of the voters they represent. They just don't care because of the way they look at the voter. The voter is like a means to an end. Therefore, everyone is welcome. Right? Whereas these like yuppie Republicans, like, the neocon crew, and sadly, a lot of leaders in the Republican Party, they view it as like a reflection of them, who we are. How many times have you heard a Republican establishment hack, i.e. John Thune, we went over last week, say, this is not who we are. How many times did you hear Paul Ryan? This is not who we are. Right? Right, Senator Tim Scott? Right? 11:53. A lot more coming on Inside the Numbers. We're going to bring Don. We want to get to your questions a lot, too. We're going to show a preview. Don's got a great show coming up. We're going to do a little clip on that. But also, too, we're going to leave a lot more room for questions today than what we left last time. 30 to 44, preferring Trump to it. I'm going to answer one right now because it's on topic. Alexander. When you get to Q&A time, Alexander, you're on Q&A time right now. Based on your post yesterday about Hispanic men 30 to 44 preferring Trump to a generic Republican, would you be able to elaborate on what issues Trump does better on? Is it the economy, border security, etc., or is it more so that Trump actually took public stands and is seen as a protector of the average person against leftism, whereas most Republicans are too afraid to say anything to the New York Times will disapprove of? I think it's a little bit of both. For instance, in that area I was just speaking about, let's keep race open here, and let's look at most important voting issue, okay? Hispanics cared more about the economy than whites did, 33 to 25, and more so than blacks did, 21.7 or 22%. Cost of living was a bigger concern for whites, but it did matter to them more. Hispanics were also more concerned about lockdowns. Barnes was right about that because when people chose coronavirus, we asked them, well, what do you think? Is it too strict or is it, not strict enough? Where are you on this issue? of lockdowns, and Hispanics care more about strict mitigation efforts than most people do. Also, let me look a couple of things here. I mean, there was a big one for healthcare, but Hispanics are more concerned about immigration than whites are. In a diverse Hispanic majority Central Valley congressional district. It's just so frustrating because the Republicans are so stupid. Right, Laura? Stupid. They're so stupid. Not Republicans, but Republican leaders. They're absolutely stupid. They are not smart. And neither are most of the people who advise them. They cared more about border security than white voters did. And on and on. So that's a great, that's really a great question. Now, I don't have it. I can't do it right now, but obviously you're a locals member. What I will do is ask, the client whether I can nest some stuff and share it with you, because what we could do is take Hispanic Trump supporters and compare them to their priorities to Hispanic Republican voters, like generic Republican voters. And I think that would be interesting. But again, I think what's important here is Hispanics are going for Trump in this district. A district they themselves say they voted against Trump by 20 points. Folks, that's not 20. What was it? 39, 53, something like that. So what? About, 14. Let's just call it 14. Even because I'm sure tens of percentage points, it's not an extra point, added to that. It's not really 15, 14, I think it's obvious. I don't think Gloucestershire could have, I don't think Ed Sweeney could have lost without Gloucestershire swinging 21 points, and Gloucestershire couldn't without the working Hispanic population. Ironically, they had voted for Trump, that district. We just didn't really care to look at it. Nobody cared. Nobody looks by district, by state district like that until something big, like a majority leader, gets taken out. Surprisingly out of nowhere. Only then do you think, I wonder how they voted for Trump. By 3.5 points. Anyway, it's 11:57. I'll take this short break now, and when we come back, we'll answer questions. We'll bring on Don. Though, Vince, I'm going to answer that right now. How much is that Donald Trump the man versus America First policies? That's great that you said that, because I think the idea generally is what, going back to part of what Alexander asked, which is that you really only get, like, Republicans are only halfway there. They're getting some more Hispanic support, but it is not the support Donald Trump is getting. And I think that is the policy. So, they're like anti-Democrat voting because the policies Democrats are implementing aren't helping and or are hurting them. Plus, they're not in line with their values, their personal values. But that only gets you halfway there. And then I think the other part of it being Donald Trump, the man, is that they know him. They know he's not a party man and that he will defend them. So, it's like, I can't tell you how many Hispanic men were like, I'll take the mean tweets. I'll take the ass back. I'll take it all. I don't care. He was better at his job. He's not, he's never going to cave. He's never going to buckle. He's going to do what he told you. I can't tell you how much that means to voters. When you just simply do what you say you're going to do. It's a novel concept, but look at the scumbags like the late John McCain. And I mean, look at these people. They're so full of crap. They betrayed their voters year after year after year, and voters never had another option. Not really, anyway, right? Goes back to the 17th Amendment conversation we had, but not really. John McCain has tons of money to swamp Kelly Ward in ads, to lie, to portray himself as the defender of border security and the efforts to repeal Obamacare. Then in reality, He blocks every single border security effort that anybody brings forward. And then one of his final moments on earth is a vindictive, petty, immature scumbag moment where he does the ultimate betrayal of his voters just to what? Hurt Donald Trump? So, when you have a guy that people see as someone who will, or girl, or woman, who will keep their promise no matter what, it goes a long way. So I think those questions combined were really, really interesting, because I think you're both onto something. I really do. All right. With that in mind, we'll answer more when we come back. All right. Don't forget to follow me on Getter, guys. Check out your merchandise. Represent.com/People's Pundit. Get your hoodies, sweaters, whatever, tees. And I see some of you got that all worked out. Laura and I worked that out. And then also, of course, we'll have more. We just, we're doing a little at a time. There's no reason to explode an entire merch store right away. We start small, go as we, grow as we go, right? All right. So, but, definitely check out Locals. If you like these voter analysis models, there's another one coming out a little bit later in the day, which was supposed to be out yesterday. I was hoping to do a thing on, but I didn't like it. I wanted to say it was just something, wrong with it. So I went back and took a look at it. That's who I am. Ask Laura. I mean, I'm like OCD about numbers, right, Laura? Just OCD, just terrible. But that helped. But I think that's part of what makes our work more accurate here. But if you like them, of course, the best way to follow along with all the work we do is peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. I'm going to be talking a little bit when I come back from the break about the locals community and hindsight 2021. I was probably going to do something also for locals later to talk about it, because it needs to be spoken about. Laura and I did not expect the locals community. Well, Laura did, because she's like Mrs. Positive all the time, and I am too. I am definitely Mr. Positive, but I'm also a little bit more realistic in my expectations. And we really did have an incredible year, and we accomplished a lot together. But we'll talk about that after the break. All right. And I'm going to save most of it anyway for locals, because it's that conversation. And it's an off-year cycle. I mean, there was essentially one major election, as there always is in Virginia and New Jersey. And we did incredible. And God only knows what's in store for us in 2022. All right. But follow us on Getter at People's Pundit on Getter. You can follow Laura at Laura Barris. It's on my profile. You can click on it. And then, of course, I'm still on Twitter. Peoples_Pundit on Twitter. God knows how long. At Peoples_Pundit on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button. Smash the like button, as our fan says, right? And subscribe, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. Wednesday's show had about 6,000 views on YouTube, 500 and something likes, not a single dislike. From YouTube to Rumble to Locals, all of our social media platforms tell us the same thing, that we have the most engaging and the most, like, our conversions and our activity is way higher than the vast majority of most platforms out there, of most personalities out there. And we may not have 2 million subscribers, but for pound, we have the most viewership for the number of subscribers and the most interactions and the best positive ratings. And we love you guys for it. It's incredible. I would much rather have an engaging audience. Like, the quality of our audience is superb. And I would trade that for artificial big numbers anytime. And as we grow, I hope and pray that it stays that way, because I do not want to sacrifice that for growth. Right, Laura? You know what I mean. But still, like I said, you can subscribe, hit the notification bell on YouTube. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. If you're watching on Rumble, subscribe on Rumble. Give us that little plus. And I think I hit it all. Right? I didn't miss anything, right? Nope. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Special thanks to the Bone Band. Here they are with Bad Habit.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And we're back inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. And Happy New Year. Have a great one, but a safe one, please. I'm going to go out to dinner tonight. It was my mother-in-law's birthday, so I'm going to take her out to dinner, for her birthday. And we're going to do it early. All right. So everybody be safe. And, of course, go out, do your plans. But, I hate New Year tragedies. I can't stand them. Unfortunately, I've seen too many of them. So be safe, and enjoy it. Ring in the new one. Look forward to better things in the future, right? 2021 was a terrible year, according to most Americans. A really bad one, ladies and gentlemen. Among the worst, which I will show you right now. Locals, you know this. I gave this to you earlier today. Another benefit of being a member of the locals community is that you absolutely will see things ahead of time that other people don't see. All right. Let's pop it up. Bang. Let's go full bore here. All right. So are you from better or off or worse off economically than you were a year ago? Or are your finances about the same? Only 1 in 5 Americans, and these are adults, ladies and gentlemen, this is an adult sample. Only 1 in 5 Americans said that they were better off. About half of the country says they are worse. 28% say about the same. 3% say they're not sure. Well, what does not sure really mean? Probably around about the same, right? How about a year from now? By the way, if you look at Republicans and independents, half of independents say they're worse off. 61% of Republicans said they were worse off. 35% of Democrats said they were worse off. But 35% is the plurality. Only 32% of Democrats said they were better off, ladies and gentlemen, compared to just 11% and 17% of Republicans and independents, respectively. About the same, 26% of Republicans, 28% of independents, 30% of Democrats. And that's pretty in line, isn't it? How about a year from now? Do you think your finances will be better or worse? About a third said they'll think that they'll be better. That is driven largely by optimism among Democrats, 44%. Not among independents and Republicans at 32 and 19, respectively. Worse, 34%. That includes a majority of Republicans, 51%, 1/5 of Democrats, and 1/3 of independents or others, unaffiliated. About the same, 30%, 3 and 10. So between worse and about the same, nearly 2/3 of Americans. And it's not good. Looking back, how would you rate the year 2021? One of the best years ever, 2%. Laura, I can hear because Laura's in another room today, and I can hear her laughing in the other room. An excellent year, 5%. A good year, 16%. A fair year, 26%. A poor year, 48%, about half. Not sure? Come on. What does that mean? It isn't good? Hold on, let me kill that beeping. It's driving me nuts. Hang on. There we go. There we have it. Okay. And yeah, Don, whenever you're ready, buddy. Looking back, how would you rate the year? Again, stinks. Looking ahead, you expect the year 2022 to be one of the best years ever, 6%. An excellent year, 12%. A good year, 23%. A fair year, 21%. A poor year, 29%. Not sure, 8%. The largest group, 3 and 10, say that it will be a poor year. Half say either fair or poor. I hate pessimism. It just doesn't go with my DNA very well, you know? And that's really the truth of it. I can't stand pessimism. And I have to say, it, but it's true. One of Donald Trump's best attributes was that he was just a good cheerleader for the country. He was very optimistic. Liveris came out, the CEO of Dow Chemical Company, came out of a meeting with Trump when he was first inaugurated, or, almost immediately after he was inaugurated. And Trump was telling him, this is what you can expect from this economy. You tell me. I'm just going to let you do you. He told Andrew Liveris, basically, you're going to drive it. I believe in you. I believe in the American spirit, ingenuity, economic innovation, and I'm going to let you do you. I'm working with the Congress right now. We're going to use the Congressional Review Act, and we're going to wipe a whole bunch of the stuff that Obama threw on your backs off the table. We're going to wipe them away, and we're going to start fresh new slate. It's all up to you. The sky's the limit. He walked out of that meeting like a kid. And he said, Donald Trump will be one of the greatest jobs presidents since the founding fathers. That's what he said. This is not the case in this environment. And it fosters negativity. I keep telling people all the time, they want to know about the economy. Why is it so bad? Why is this? Why is that? And Joe Biden, the administration, they always want to tout these numbers, which anyone can screw with these numbers and cherry pick. They're BS. They're gimmicks. They're methodological gimmicks like they were under Obama. And people can't feel it. And no matter how much they push this bull, they can't imagine why people just can't agree with that. Because reality always wins, man. When it comes to the economy, reality always wins. And it is not a secret. If you read the ISMs, read the panel responses. Don't wait for losers like Jim Cramer to try to interpret economic data for you. Read it from the mouth of babes, man. They'll tell you themselves. Regulation and constant threat of mitigation policies. The destruction of the supply chain. Rising inflation. CEO of Goya said yesterday, man, And I tweeted it. Basically the question was, well, what are we looking at here? The cost of goods in next year. What do you think? What kind of increase in the cost of goods, foods, groceries do you think we're looking at? And he said somewhere in the neighborhood of 40%. It's not just because he's getting killed by the supply chain issues as his company and everyone, 4,000 employees. The vast majority being in the United States. They are getting killed by supply chain issues. But he said, which I found interesting, even stuff like packing supplies, the cost of that stuff, wrapping. So they put them on, they get the pallet, they put the goods on the pallet, they wrap them up with saran, even packing supplies. So they get shipped in boxes, whatever it may be, cardboard. All of the cost of these things, these materials, the costs are rising for these materials. So he has to pass it along. 40% means we haven't even begun to see the tip of the iceberg when it comes to inflation. And who's it going to hurt the most? Working Americans. All right, with that, let's take this time to bring in my buddy Don, if he's ready. I think he is. Let's bring in my good buddy Don Smith. We're going to talk about what he's got going on. We're going to answer some Q&A questions. Don, my friend, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. Yeah, I hope
and
you
I
all
gotta
have
put on these stupid headsets because I can't find my thing. I mean, I can hear you, but I don't want the microphone to pick it up and double it up on people.
Yep.
So I got to wear my Mickey Mouse ears.
Indeed.
Everybody just do it. I know you want to. MICKEYMOUSE. Right? Everybody says I look like Mickey Mouse with these stupid things. I do, don't I? Look at me. I'm looking in the monitor. Little bit. You ever, guys, I dare you to try to do Goofy's hot dog dance at the end of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. It's not possible. All right. I've been trying to do it since my son was a little baby. Like, look, I got it. I coordinate. You can't. The human body's the mind. You can't coordinate like those kind of movements together. It just isn't possible. Anyway, I hope you have a safe one. I know you will, my friend. I know you will.
We will. Yep.
And pass the same along to Brenda as well. I'm sure we'll talk later. But I just wanted to get that out there. Looking at that polling, first and foremost, one of the worst years on record. Only 2020 was worse, but that was because of the pandemic. And I think it was in part pandemic. And looking back on the crosstabs, a lot of Republicans, they skewed that number quite a bit. The loss of Donald Trump was, very bad for them. So the prospects going into 2021, it wasn't just Republicans, by the way, independents as well. But it was really slanted. And then the pandemic, hurt the economy. Well, that's not true. The pandemic didn't hurt the economy. Yeah. The mitigation policies hurt the economy. Yep. There's a difference. We hurt it. It was a self-inflicted wound, my friend. Yep. So, and then the prospects for 2022 aren't looking great either. What do you have to, what's your thoughts on that?
I think you can't, the real obvious thing here is look at the difference between what we saw under President Trump, right? So here we had a guy who made a bunch of promises. When he was on my show a year before the election, he listed off all these things he was going to do. So he made promises like every politician does. He followed through on every one of them. Yep. Within 6 months, everything he told me in that interview he was going to do, he did. Look at this guy. Look at the contrast with what we have under Brandon, right? So how about the clip? Did you love that clip? I agree. Let's go, Brandon. That's amazing. But anyway, everything he promised, for the people that did actually vote for him and to elect him as president. And so I say that with obviously a grain of salt, but the people that did, their number one thing was he was going to shut down the pandemic, right?
Yep.
But every single promise he made, he's not only not kept, it's been 180 out from. So I've never seen such a big contrast before between one president and the next. As I'm just blown away by that. And certainly the stuff that you're going over here that we saw in the polling that has gone on throughout the year, 2022. I just can't even imagine, because you say, well, he can't go down. Well, he can. And I think he will. Look what they're doing now, trying to shift everything now to Russia, right? Oh, my God, it's the big war. And so he's like the big wartime president now. And when you have to go to that level to distract people and to get them off of the reality that they're living through today, It's pretty sad. Donald Trump doesn't take that call from Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin's the KGB.
Yep.
He's former head of the KGB. This guy wants attention. And for 4 years, the only attention
it was illegal to talk to a Russian under Donald Trump, Don.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you were his puppet. Well, guess who's actually his puppet? It's Joe Biden. Look what they're doing. He wants to make a call with Biden. Of course, Biden wants to take that call because he wants everybody talking about, oh my God, the imminent war. Oh my God, this is going to be terrible. World War III. He wants to distract everybody, and it's so pathetic. It's so obvious. But I've just never seen such a contrast between one presidential term and another.
Yeah, I was just, while you were talking too, I was just looking at that one district that we were discussing. And this is now, we've been polling all these districts, and this is a pattern, and in this particular district, if you voted for Joe Biden, 10% say they'll vote for Donald Trump, roughly, a little under 10%, only 3%, which is among some of the highers. Normally, that number comes in below 2. If you voted for Donald Trump, you'd vote for Joe Biden. If you voted for Joe Biden, he's losing about 1 out of 10 to Donald Trump and 11% to someone else. And that is, less. That's more than double what Donald Trump would lose to someone else. So, this is a pattern. And I've showed you other polls. You've seen it. This is, at this point, like you said, I say it with a grain of salt too. But even, if we were to look at 2020's electorate all over again, you're looking at a vote swing of 8 million nationally, bro. 8 million net to Donald Trump. That is monumental. And I imagine the contrast that you just made, they're doing all over the country. And Democrats can sit here and pump out, garbage government statistics and cherry pick them the way they want. But people aren't feeling it's not working. It's not working like it didn't work in 2016 when they tried to paint Obama as the greatest jobs president since FDR or something. It was ridiculous. We all knew it was ridiculous. It was, again, methodological gimmicks with the household employment survey, the employment situation report, monthly report. Those were gimmicks, and people knew they were gimmicks, and they know they're gimmicks now. The number of Hispanics in this district. I went to the client. I'm like, is this right to you? Are these many people? Is it true this many people were full-time employed under Donald Trump and now are not, either part-time or unemployed and looking? And he's like, yeah, man, this place is in trouble, And I went back, I was sifting through census, BEA and the BLS data. And I'm like, holy crap, this is right. This is real. And they have the nerve to put that labor participation rate in some of these areas. Anyway, get the hell out of here. Number one, it never hit that critical 63 until Trump, until about a year or two into Trump, which is a big deal. I mean, people feel that. They're like, wow, everyone's working. Everyone who wants to work is working. And now, I mean, this is what moved these Hispanic men, Don. I'm telling you. They're like, man, I just want my economy back. That's it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. People want to work. I mean, people want to support their family and they want these opportunities. The big thing right now is that I've never seen anything like this before.
Especially Hispanics. I just want to say this. Especially Hispanics. Their labor participation rates exceed others. They do, except for Asians and, but.
I have never seen an administration so disjointed in their messaging. And I think obviously a big part of this is you've got the squad versus what's so-called moderates. I mean, the only real moderate they have left is Joe Manchin, and look what they think of him.
Even Sinema's not moderate anymore, buddy.
Right. But they're so disjointed in their messaging as people are feeling these things. It's the whole thing we talked about. You go to the store and the shelves are not full. They're not fully stocked. And then you come home and you watch Joe Biden tell you they're fully stocked. But they came out here recently and they're touting their job numbers. It's historic. He wants to be historic. I mean, that's his whole life is that he wants to be historic. Well, he's historically going to be, I believe, the worst president we've ever had. So, but they're going to spin it the opposite. But they're so disjointed, Rich, on their messaging. I've never seen anything like this before.
There's no federal solution to COVID was one of the biggest. I don't even know, Twilight Zone turnarounds I've ever seen in the history of politics. This is a man who ran, I'm going to shut down the virus, not the economy. I'm going to shut down the virus, not the economy. Now, What? He ran against Donald Trump's record on COVID because he couldn't run against his record on the economy. People trusted Trump on the economy overwhelmingly. And it was COVID. It was COVID. Only in Ohio, Iowa, and Florida did Trump, when you ask people, and by the way, the exit poll showed that, so my polling was right, trust to handle issues. They actually trusted Donald Trump in Florida more than Biden on COVID. They trusted Donald Trump more than Biden on COVID in Ohio and Iowa. In Pennsylvania, Michigan, that was a little bit different. In Wisconsin, even that was different. But if you were to believe what they were saying, then Wisconsin would never have been that close. Because they was like, look at the Wisconsin, the outbreak. Maybe that has something to do with Biden's double-digit lead in Wisconsin. Bro, I almost said it, that they try to shovel down our throats is just too much for me to bear anymore. I really can't. I can't do it anymore. Fauci. So you mentioned the Russia thing. This year, at the end of 2021, 3 things happened that I just can't believe I'm hearing. There's no federal solution to COVID, Joe Biden now believes. Anthony Fauci, who once called a lockdown and the loss of 15 million jobs economically inconvenient, is now concerned about pandemic mitigation measures shutting down society. All right, now, and 3, Natasha Bertrand now thinks that talking to Russians is okay. So, all 3 things happened this month. I guess we really did progress in 2021, didn't we, buddy? Holy crap. Don, really? This is a total... Her and other fake journalists who pretend to be journalists, they're really just intelligence assets. They think they have sources. They're stupid. They're assets. They are not... The intel people they talk to are not their sources. They are those people's assets. Big difference. Big difference in this world. And Natasha Bertrand, the perfect example, but there are others. And now it's all right to engage Putin. Under Donald Trump, it was a crime.
It's a good thing now. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
But let me break this down. Because when I talk about disjointed messaging, okay, I come from this as somebody with years of experience in messaging, campaigns, and things like that. When I say disjointed, these guys have always been, Rich, they've always been masters at communication. You and I have talked about this for years now. They're always masters at it. And the reason they are, it's the same reason when you watch newscasts and they all use the same terms, right? They all say the same thing. It's a debacle. It's a debacle. It's a debacle. They all say the same words.
The walls are closing in. The walls are closing in. The walls are closing in.
Yep. Typically, these guys all get together and they all get on the same page. So there's an actual strategy to the campaigning, to this messaging that they put out.
It's David Brock. He writes it. He writes it to them, just so people understand. David Brock writes the talking points every week. And they all get the email from David Brock, and they all regurgitate what he says.
Correct.
That's why that. That is 100% what happens.
So look what happens here when Joe Biden comes out, because this is the disjointed part. So Joe Biden comes out and says, "Yeah, there really is no federal response. There really is no federal plan. This is something at a state level." He was never supposed to say that. I can't imagine the strategists on the left for communications. I mean, they had to just be bouncing off the walls because he was not supposed to say that. That's the worst thing you could possibly say. But he said it. So now they have to clean it up. So now you've got Jen Psaki out here saying, well, it was taken out of context. He did not say that the states were on their own. Nobody said that he did. Nobody said he did say that. What they said was he said what he said. There is no federal response. This is a state level issue. He didn't say states are on their own, and nobody implied that he did. So when your messaging is that disjointed, where you have to come out and put it into a whole new context, because that's what Psaki and the rest of the White House is trying to do right now. They're trying to say that his critics are saying he said states were on their own. Nobody ever said that.
Yep.
So this is how out of sorts they are right now, but he was never supposed to say that. There's no coordination anymore. And this is what happens when there's no coordination.
I got a great union question for you that I want to ask. Somebody had posed. Rocket Boy, I'm getting to you in a second. But before I do, I just want to also bring up, speaking of the three things that I just mentioned that are complete turnarounds under Joe Biden than we saw under Donald Trump. Russia, right now, it's a good thing. It's not a crime, right? And then you have Fauci called the loss of tens of millions of jobs economically inconvenient, is now all of a sudden concerned about society being able to function under mitigation measures. And then, of course, Joe Biden, there's no federal response to COVID. There is another one in there that after the new year, the FDA has a nice little thing on their website, which I'm going to read from soon in a second. All of the stuff, these PCR tests through false positives. Don, a month after Joe Biden was sworn in, Reuters released a report. It was absolutely damning against the CDC. The CDC, Donald Trump did not botch the testing regime in the beginning of the pandemic. The CDC did, and they did it on purpose for political purposes. They did that so the media and his political opponents could criticize Donald Trump for not getting testing up and running. Think about how bad, how evil, not bad, evil these people have to be to put their political agendas above the lives of God knows how many people we were even thinking and talking about at that time. Now we're up to almost 1 million, thanks to Joe Biden. We're up to almost 1 million people dead from this pandemic, and they have the nerve to do something like that. But these PCR tests now, they're throwing them out, buddy. Those of us in the beginning, we're starting to look at the burden estimates and we're saying, where the hell are the burden estimates for the flu this year? Where are the burden estimates for pneumonia this year? Where are the burden estimates for RSV this year? Now on the FDA website right now, they have all these things listed. Everything from strep throat to every form of flu we've seen in the last 2 years, every strain of flu, to bacterias like pneumonia and staph. I mean, whoa, dude. Whoa. And we were called conspiracy theorists for simply putting up line charts that said, here's a traditional seasonal flu. Here is where we're at now. Where's the flu? Here's where traditional pneumonia cases are.
Pneumonia, yep.
Where's pneumonia?
Yep.
And they got money for this, Don. They got money for those false positives, ladies and gentlemen. They got money. I mean, this is the biggest scandal in the history of public health, Don. This PCR scandal. This is the biggest scandal. I'm telling you, there's nothing bigger than this one. What the hell? Little children with RSV? It was already bad that we were isolating them and they weren't being introduced. They weren't being exposed so they could create the immunities they needed. RSV is dangerous to little babies, unlike COVID. I'm sorry, this pisses me off. You're like gambling with human life so you can win an election? Bro, that's evil. That's not political.
It is.
That's evil.
Look what they're doing with the monoclonal antibodies.
Yeah.
And they're denying those to states like Florida and Texas and red states, right? This is all on purpose. Look what they've done with the therapeutics, right? Whether it's, the I1 and all the other ones that I guess, I don't know if we still get shut down for talking about them anymore or not, but look at what they've done with the therapeutics. Because there's ways now to deal with this stuff where you're not hospitalized. And so that was never the real concern, that the hospitals were going to overflow and all these horrible things. This is all 100% political. It's always been 100% political, and it always will be. He won an election. For those who voted for him based on that, that was his whole game plan. Hillary lost because all she had was, I hate Donald Trump.
Yep.
He had, I hate Donald Trump, but I'm also going to end the pandemic. And people
shut down the virus, not the economy.
1 week ago, Dr. Ben Carson went on TV and did an interview where he said that the PCR tests are inaccurate. There's
Garbage.
A lot of false positives. They fact-checked the hell out of him. Everything he said was wrong. Go here for the real data. Now they're saying it. It's look at you did a tweet yesterday. You shared the fact-checking thing on Joe Biden 5 months ago, at the CNN town hall, where he said, if you get the vaccine, you will not get COVID. And he even said, I'm even talking about the variants. It'll take care of that too. Don't worry about it. Delta, you'll be fine. If you get the vaccine, you will not get COVID.
Let me play that. Okay, let's do it, because you and I have talked about this, and that's what I tweeted. I said, as Don Smith, Show 2, and I have talked about in segment after segment after segment, these fake fact checkers, these elite fake fact checkers, will tell you with a straight face that he never said this. Thank you, Big Fish, by the way. Let's play it. I'm going to put it all the way back. Here we go.
Position where we think.
Oh, wait. You guys can't hear that, can you? Why not? That's odd. You know what? I'll pull it off and download it, and then a big fish, I'm going to give you credit for it. Okay. So, cause he grabbed it and he sent it, you know, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it and download it, but we can keep talking until I get it, but I'll get it and I'll actually put it right into here so we can do this, you know?
Okay. That's another example right there. So this, when I say they're disjointed on their communications, this has been going on since the day he was inaugurated. I mean, this is a great example of it. He was never supposed to say that, but he did, because he's out of touch. There's no coordination with him and his communications team. There's nobody driving. Remember, I had Sean Spicer on at one point. So he had just gotten out of the position of being press secretary under President Trump. And he said, I asked him about that. I said, what's it like to work for President Trump? Because typically the communications guy drives the messaging. Yeah. Well, in the case of Donald Trump, you don't drive any messaging. You don't say, hey, President Trump, I think you should say this, because he's going to say what he's going to say, right? So, and he mentioned that Sean Spicer said, yeah, you get on the train and you ride on the train with him and you handle it as you have to handle it. He was competent enough to do that. Donald Trump was. His messaging was his messaging. Joe Biden's not. So when Joe Biden goes off hinged and he says these things off prompter, it's hard to get on the train. Some people get on the train, some people get off the train, some people say, wow, he should have never said that. It's complete chaos when it comes to their messaging. And as a communications guy, I'm loving watching this. It's hilarious.
Well, the audience said they could hear it, but I pulled it up anyway. So let's just play. It's 25 seconds, but that's all you need to hear. And not out of context. Don't give me the crap. This is what he said.
Position where we think that any virus, including the Delta virus, which is much more transmissible and more deadly in terms of unvaccinated people, the various shots that people are getting now cover that. You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, there it is. Just like Glenn Kessler before the election, he never said he's going to shut down the Keystone Pipeline. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump got a huge Tron, bro, the big screen in Erie, Pennsylvania, and said, and played it. This is what has to be done now. This is how dishonest these people are. Of course he said that. And the study, by the way, that just came out, I put it on Locals. Everyone jumped to see, now there's Omicron. It's all your unvaccinated fault. Yep. The shot does nothing for Omicron. That is a medical fact. What the hell are you talking about? And somehow it's like you're not. It's not misinformation. Mm-hmm. That is what the studies show. Yep. And by the way, people were using the new variant as a way to support the mandates before we ever had any data. Mm-hmm. You know, and actually we had initial data from areas in Africa, which showed that it wasn't stopped. If you were vaccinated, there was no difference in your infection with Omicron versus whether you were unvaccinated. And all of those studies that they used to push that anyway really were dishonest from the jump, because they never distinguished between the unvaccinated who were not prior infected and the vaccinated who were prior infected. If you do, then you get very different numbers. And you're telling me they weren't doing that on purpose, Don?
Well, okay. So let's just take this. Here's one example right now that is happening real time as we speak. I talked about how this is always political. It's got nothing to do with health. It certainly has nothing to do with science. My goodness, science is just like
Robert Malone.
Oh my God.
They just suspended Robert Malone, one of the main inventors of mRNA vaccines.
Correct. So check this out. So they're saying what we saw in India, right? India reported that 81% of the people who are coming down with Omicron are fully vaccinated. 81%. So this is not a disease of the unvaccinated anymore. But here's an example of what I'm talking about. There's a big push right now to shut down the cruise line industry, right? Got to stop these cruises. Everybody just think about this for a minute. Every single person, nobody even gets near a cruise ship unless you're fully vaccinated. You don't get on board. You took a test, a PCR test to get on board that said you were negative. You didn't have it.
Don,
Every single person on that ship is fully vaccinated. And wow, what's happening? Oh my goodness, there's outbreaks of Omicron. So we
The
got to shut
travel
down.
restrictions, my friend. You
Yep.
can if you to enter the United
Yep.
States, you either needed a vaccine passport or a PCR test showing you were negative 24 hours prior.
Correct. But
And now you're telling us they don't work?
here's my point. The push right now from the left to shut down the cruise line industry. Why are they doing that? It's either one, because they're concerned about people's health. Nope. Flush that down the toilet, because that's not why. You know why? Because it's the optics. Because everybody knows you don't get near a cruise ship unless you're 100% fully vaccinated. And this is the worst optic you can possibly have if you're pushing to get more people vaccinated.
Yep, and that was, by the way, this is just a repeat of what they had started to do 2 years ago. I mean, optically it looked terrible, right? And then they were talking about the princess, remember that? And then, by the way, when we started to actually look at, some of those comparisons, well, listen, aren't you arguing for people to, in fact, do what the cruise ship did, which was lock everybody down and put them in their bedrooms, right? It didn't work because the data is showing us indoor transmissions from lockdowns is what is called, you're putting people in those controlled, closed spaces over long duration periods of time. And that is what, in fact, raises the risk of infection. And then we lock everybody up until what? They got to go to the grocery store where they all huddle together. And guess what? You're now in another closed space for a longer, extended period of time. I mean, they were never capable of making rational arguments on any of this from the beginning, Don. And the fact that, some people still, because the fear, the illusory theory, right? You cannot admit you had been misled. So you know now at some point of view, part of you knows that you've been lied to, but you believe the lie for so long that you still believe it. And it doesn't. And by the way, people who study this know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, the illusory effect, it doesn't matter how educated you are. So it's like some idea like only, these uneducated people won't get vaccinated. It doesn't. Your education level really has nothing to do with whether or not you continue to believe lies that you have been pumped on you, which is total opposite from what they said. But to shift corners is a great question. I think, your background, your experience, you'd be able to answer this really well. This is from Rocket Boy. And he said, how are these states' pension funds and union dues tied into corrupt administrations, even regardless of political party? How do these dues, Don, and the pension funding, how does that influence, the corruption and the yeah.
It's huge.
It's
huge. So, okay, let me go to one specific example where I can cite some facts here. We'll go back to Barack Obama, 2008, right? So we had the financial collapse. What was really collapsed were union pension funds. And do you know why? Because they give that money to people like Obama to get him elected. They expect something back for that. Why do you think the teachers' unions have so much influence over CDC guidelines? Bingo. So we passed this big, huge, what was it, $850 billion, the first almost nearly $1 trillion package. This package, Barack Obama went around and told everybody that he was going to hire more teachers, more firefighters, more police. Remember, everybody remembers this, right? He hired none, but he did give that money to the pension funds. So you hear these stories where pension funds are like 30% funded, 40% funded. First of all, that should be criminal, right? Because you're playing with these people's money. It's no different than it was back in the Hoffa days with the casinos out in Las Vegas and the mafia and all those kind of things. They're just giving this money away. But anyway, keep it in a political sphere. They give this money to the candidates. And you don't think this Biden bill, the Build Back Better, you don't think that's not going to refurbish pension plans? Of course it is. Go on Open Secrets. Look at the money. Look who really gives money. Who really gives money. They said the Koch brothers. Remember the Koch brothers when it was the big thing that they're the number one political contributor? That was a lie. They were number 43. Number 1 through 10, 7 of them were teachers' unions. So when Obama got all that money, he didn't hire any new teachers or firefighters or police people. He replenished their pension funds so that the next election time they can dole out hundreds of millions of dollars again. So they are told. That's a great question.
It's a laundromat, man.
It's a great question, and more people should ask that question, and more people should talk about this because it is so criminal. It's unbelievable.
And another one was, which is great. Can you explain what Trump's executive order on insulin would have done? and how it would have lowered prices. Well, it did. It's not would have. It absolutely did. And, the fact checkers run out and they're like, Biden didn't scrap it. He froze it. So that's not true. False. The claim that Biden reversed Trump's executive order on insulin is false.
Yep.
Their justification is that he technically did not get rid of it. He froze it for the foreseeable future. So, I mean, this is the games these hacks play. Yeah, they're disgusting. And if you were one of the 3 million people on Medicare that had diabetes and were enrolled in Medicare, you saw a 66% decline. He dropped it to $35. So it was easily affordable. And it did. It's not that it would have. It did. And the idea that they would use insulin to help push Build Back Better, Don, was unbelievable because they created this problem. Donald Trump already dealt with it. It was one of the things that he did when Elijah Cummings, if you were watching the other day, guys, when I was talking about one of the saddest moments of the Trump administration when it came to playing politics, party over people, was Elijah Cummings, who really wanted to work with Donald Trump to lower the cost of prescription drugs, and insulin was one of their top priorities. They talked, they actually got along, they had, started to hatch something out, and then, Pelosi said, no Trump wins, idiot, no Trump wins, so you're going to stop picking up the phone for the president. It was disgusting. And then Trump said, well, I'm going to do some things on my own. Some of that had to do with generics, right? There was with insulin, he took action separately because there was a major problem with people getting lethal, insulin in an attempt to get lower cost insulin. It was killing people. I mean, this was a serious problem, and you would have known, but the media was too busy reporting on ridiculous nonsense to talk about serious issues that were happening under Trump. On purpose, right? On
purpose.
And, especially for seniors, Biden's thing hurt seniors the most. Seniors with diabetes, they're on fixed income. They couldn't afford that insulin. He froze that, and the cost of insulin is now 66% higher thanks to him. End of story, bro. I mean, end of story. This
is why the media is so dangerous. And another thing that you and I have talked about for years now, they're so dangerous. This is all on purpose. Remember the 2014 kids in cages thing? Okay. Those facilities were built under the Obama administration. The picture was from 2014, but they said it was happening right now under Donald Trump. Well, guess what? It's happening again. Over 4,000 kids were separated from their parents in the Afghanistan withdrawal. Over 4,000 kids. Do you hear anything about babies being ripped out of the arms of their mothers? Do you hear anything about kids in cages anymore? Do you hear anything about any of that stuff? Of course you don't. This year, 2022, here's my prediction. We are going to be on the brink of nuclear war. The Russia thing is going to be, oh my God, this is the most dangerous situation. You're going to hear things about.
Look what he's doing with Ukraine, Don.
Look, he's
about to start a war over Ukraine again.
Yep. You're going to hear stories about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and you're going to see all kinds of specials about this, and they're going to try to jack you up about what's going on in Russia because they want to distract you from all these other things we're talking about having to talk about the Afghan kids being separated from their parents, what's going on at the southern border, all these failures, inflation, everything. So this is what the media does, and it's why they are so incredibly dangerous, and it's why you and I do what we do.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the media, I now regard as the most destructive force in this country. They are the most dangerous, whatever you want to call it, obstacle to having a free, prosperous, and peaceful society. They are the primary drivers of the potential second civil war scenario. They are the primary drivers of racial division. They are the primary drivers of economic malaise. This is just, they are not a positive force at all in this country. They're the primary driver of injustice when it comes to whether or not someone can get a fair trial in this country. If it fits their narrative, they'll destroy them. And they'll poison the jury pool. I mean, we've been seeing this for years. Rittenhouse got off lucky, buddy. And we've talked about that before, but they were going to destroy that guy. Others were not so lucky. I'm not going to bring up specific cases, but there were, cases that were, different than Rittenhouse, but still, nevertheless, 10 years ago, these people would never have been convicted. 20 years ago, those people would never have been convicted for these crimes, and they have been. I mean, that's it. On and on and on. And it's funny, Laura and I were talking to some people about and because we had seen something and it made us interested in it, about the corruption in Baltimore under the former mayor. And I'm not sure this one's going to be any better, but she was a crook. And there's an instance with a cop who was killed. All right. And the circumstances of his death are extremely suspicious. It looks like he was, a lot of people think he was murdered. They ruled it a suicide. The family won't get benefits. It's a whole spiel. One state senator, she's a black woman, had said, she sounded like a conservative. And Laura and I couldn't help but to say, like, any other context, this woman who is a liberal, a Democrat, would sound like a populist conservative in modern America. And what she said was that these people are to blame for the economic problems in Baltimore. They want to wage a drug, the cops want to be tough on drugs, when in fact it is what she called the permanent failure political class, which is these people, they keep getting elected, they just keep getting in, but it is their failure that put these people in this downtrodden position. She sounds like a conservative you would see on the right, this plight of urban America, in the ghettos, and the average American ghetto is the creation of them, the mayor, the state governments, and they leave these people no other choice but to be in, she said, drugs is the primary economy in that part of Baltimore. There is nothing else for people to do. So what else do you expect someone to do to make money? And then she said that the last thing they want us to do is sit down and talk like this. The last thing they want us to do is really how much, some areas of white America would have in common with urban black communities who live in communities like Baltimore, where, it's not West Virginia's fault that their jobs were ripped away from them and outsourced overseas, and Oxycontin was a plague that was dumped on them. It's the political class's fault. The same is true in Baltimore, she was saying. And the last thing they would want to happen is for white working class Appalachia to start to connect with urban black America, because that's it for them, man. Then we all sit down and we all say, holy crap, you're not the enemy. You're not my enemy. They're our enemy. They did this to us. You're not the bad guy. You're not a boogeyman. They are. They're the boogeyman. They did to you what they did to us. And I'm like, you remember, Laura's in the other room, but Laura knows what I'm talking about. It blew me away after, it really did, man. It blew me away, because I'm like, that there are people out there that really do understand this. And she had no good words for the black community leaders in Baltimore. None at all. She was like, look, they are the black community in Baltimore. To them, they're nothing but a way to meet their ambition. Right. They don't look at them as people. They don't care about their plight. They don't care about which she believes in systemic racism, because, the idea that Baltimore is diverse doesn't matter to her, because, it's really, even if it's a black mayor, as it was at the time of this man's killing or murder, whatever, he died, whatever it may be, that it was, honestly, I find their theory of a suicide ridiculous. I'll share more of this later when we start to investigate it. But, at that time, it was a black mayor. So people would always lob, well, how could it be systemically racist? It's a black mayor. And now the white commissioner has stepped down and she appointed her own black commissioner. He lasted 4 months, by the way. He was a tax fraud. He was a tax cheat. And she put him in charge just so, and Laura and I were like, you got to be kidding. This guy was not vetted properly. The only thing the mayor wanted was him to appoint certain people in an independent review board, so they would come to the conclusion of suicide and just sweep it under the rug. Get rid of it. Just get rid of it real quick. And her answer to that was that black people can be racist too against black people, or at least use the institutions to be systemically racist against their own. It's not, so she's like, I think we need to evolve the definition of systemically racist when we're talking about this, because white people reflexively clam up and go, what the hell with you? It's not our fault. It's your fault. Who runs the city? We don't, So, and I get that. And she's saying that
if we expanded the definition and we talked about it honestly, then we would get more, and I just couldn't believe how much her views had in common as a public opinion guy, as a public opinion pollster. I can't believe how much her views, I just can't believe how much my average viewer would agree with her, is my point, And it just blew me away. It was a little bit eye-opening, Don. It really was.
Those who say they want to have an honest conversation do not want to have an honest conversation. They want you to sit down and shut up and listen to them and give them everything they want, which is leftism. That's what leftism is I get everything I want. I'm not in power right now, but you guys should do what we want because it's better for everybody. Those who say they want an honest conversation, that's the last thing in the world they want. Example, Loudoun County and the rest of the country for that matter, and the parents standing up at these school board meetings and look how they're being attacked. They're white supremacists. Larry Elder was the new blackface of white supremacy. They do not want an honest conversation because then you have to talk about those things, some of the things you just mentioned.
Yeah, holla, holla. Oh, that's funny. I just got it. Holla, I got it. Does Trump also do better with black men than in the average GOPer? Well, look in this poll that we were just talking about before. I didn't nest out, gender by race yet, but I can tell you right off the bat, Don, check this out. In the 2020 vote, who did you vote for? 8% of black African-American voters told us they did vote for Donald Trump in this district. That is now double to the 2024. 16% say if they could do it again, they would vote for Donald Trump. So he doubled his share of the black vote from their own self-reported, who did you vote for? So again, this is why you got to get all these vote histories because it really puts it in the proper context. Even if he doesn't win 16%, he wins 14 or whatever, rest assured, whatever he won in 20, he would win double of in this district. And then how does that compare to Republicans is the question. Only 4% of black and African-American voters told us they would vote for the Republican candidate for Congress. So basically Trump does 4 times better with blacks than the generic Republican.
Yep. I think one thing that's important, and I don't think it ever really gets talked about, it's not necessarily with the black voter. It's not necessarily even a skin color thing. And here's what I mean by this.
Yeah.
Go back to Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, back in that race 2008 when it very first started. A Democrat was going to win. There was no doubt about it because of the George Bush factor and everything that was going on at the time. So it was going to be a Democrat. Blacks overwhelmingly despised Barack Obama. They did not like him. They were 100% Hillary Clinton voters.
Oh, you mean in the prime? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It wasn't until when they played the race card against the Clintons, because she made a comment. I don't even remember what the comment was.
Did too.
Bill Clinton made a comment. Yeah. I don't remember exactly what. Was that the one?
Dumb mistake by Bill
Was
Clinton.
That the Ted Kennedy one where he said this guy'd be getting me coffee or something like that?
Yeah.
Back in the day, this guy'd be getting us coffee or something like that. Anyway, and it came out and it was public. It wasn't until that happened that all shifted. And that's when Barack Obama started getting his momentum and boom, boom, boom. And she was toast.
And in South Carolina, he was trying to recover from that. And then in South Carolina, he says something stupid like it was something many people were thinking, which is that this is not a qualified individual to be president. And he had made a offhand comment, which got out to some leaders where he said, look, let's face it. He's only competitive in South Carolina because of the color of his skin. Look what happened to me and Jesse Jackson.
Yep.
That's what he said. And he said, he is no more qualified to run for president than, he's not, is what he was saying. He is not qualified to run to be president. It's the same thing that happened with me and Jesse Jackson in South Carolina. The only reason why he won that was because he was black. And that was it, bro. Because that came like 48 hours after the Kennedy thing, and it was over. My point is it's not all about skin color to the black voters. It's the ideology. It's the vote blue, no matter who. Joe Biden, this last election, when he said, if you can't figure out whether you're for me or Trump, you ain't black, that should have destroyed his candidacy amongst the black voters. Did it? No effect at all. And let me just give people, let me see if I can show people this, just so they know I'm not BSing. All right. Here is the 2020 vote preference, thinking back to 2020 election for president. For whom did you vote? Here it is. 8.2% told us they voted for Donald Trump in 2020. You could see Biden was 54%. Trump is 40. This district, in fact, went 54-44 for Biden. So we already underestimated Trump a little bit. And then go all the way down to the generic ballot. Republican candidate, 4% they earn among the black vote. Donald Trump takes 16%. So Donald Trump takes double what, I'm sorry. He takes double his 2020 and 4 times the generic congressional ballot. So, folks, that's freaking significant. It's significant, and this isn't a particularly black district. It's only 3.5%. We spoke to 4 times the number of black voters that we needed to for the sample. So when you see little numbers there, that's only because they're waiting. It's weighted. We oversampled minorities in this district because whites are about a third. And Hispanics are, 53 and change. And we knew that all of those little small slices of the electorate, Asians, 6%, black voters, 3.5%. We knew it's really not enough to just go out there and get, when you're looking at a small sample in a district, it's not enough to get 3% of your overall 500 response sample and think that you have it. You can't. That's how people blow Florida all the time, Don. They go after like 500 responses in Florida, and they think that they're going to get an accurate representation of all these different demographic groups. You have to oversample them, weight them appropriately so they represent what they're supposed to represent, but oversample them so you get, Laura's over there like, shut up, let them fail, shut up. But she is always, but I'm talking to the viewer here, the pollsters, they're just going to keep doing what they do, Don, because I've noticed some of them are doing better with sampling, but they still aren't reaching, they're too superficial with their weights, man. They're too superficial. Like whites. Okay, great. Where did you speak? So you got enough white voters. Where did you find them? Right. They're never going to learn. Some of them are just never going to learn. Let's see how many more I can get here, Don. Let's see. Would requiring in-person requests get early mitigate mail-in voting fraud? So in other words, I think I know what they mean by that. It's worded a little weird, but would requiring people to do in-person requests for absentee ballots mitigate some of, the potential for mail-in fraud? Or would it just be another obstacle to overcome with little to no effect? I mean, you want to answer that first, Don, and I'll
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's no doubt about it. I heard you at the beginning of the show. I heard you talking about people and I sent you a couple of them, right? Where you're getting this stuff in the mail. I'm getting it from, Jim Jacobs the first and then Jim Jacobs the third. Jim Jacobs has ever lived in this house. But so yes, absolutely. Anytime you put that extra requirement on, what it does is it prevents the bundling, right? So you've got somebody who's perpetrating this fraud and it goes, if they're doing it 1,000 times. If you've got to come in person, eventually that person's not going to be able to go in 1,000 times. Yeah, I'm exaggerating with numbers, just throwing numbers out, but it's going to shut that part of it down. But absolutely, anytime you put requirements like that on where, okay, you've got to show up. You used to have to do that. You used to have to give a reason why you're voting absentee. And that's a very reasonable thing to do. I'm going to be out of the country. I'm going to be, here's the reason why. When they got rid of that, and exactly what you talked about, the left's game right now is to hold on to all those things they put in place that you and I detailed throughout the entire length of the pandemic leading up until last year's election.
I just got, and here, let me go back to that original. I'm going to show one from 2020. I mean, when I say I had a ton of them, guys, I am not kidding. I'm going to grab 2 right now that are, what is the name of that one called? All right. It's just image 001. Then why can't I find it? All right. I'm going to show people 2 examples. One is from 2020. And the other one is from the recall, from Gavin Newsom's recall. And again, when we exclude, change of address flags, recent movers, and deceased, I know I'm like a broken record here, beating a dead horse, guys, but it's because, maybe someone just tuned in, or it doesn't matter. It has to be repeated constantly. The system lags. So I'm not catching everybody. That poll we just did that I just showed you, I excluded deceased and change of address, and Laura will tell you we still had hundreds of people who are 105 years and over, 25 people who are 112 years old. I mean, California is disgusting. Their voter records are disgusting. Here is one from the recall. This is how many people want, how many ballots one person. I tried to not make the address that easy. That none of those belong to that person. Those are look, official vote by mail balloting material. Okay, here's Macomb County, Michigan. That's from 2020. Look at folks sent me this stuff all over the country. Don, you sent me in Florida. I mean, that was junior and senior. You built the house.
No.
You know, how the hell could that have even happened?
Never lived here.
This never lived here. And believe me, I know the people who send me these. Those names are not those people. Okay. I mean, none of this is what we told people would happen in the podcast 2 months before the election, day after day after day after day. You're going to get ballots and or ballot requests that don't belong to you. And Don, you're not going to tell me that, having reality winner in the NSA and, Wolf at the Senate Intelligence Agency. I use these examples often because they really illustrate what I'm talking about. If they're willing to risk their liberty and their job, their professional careers, then what do you think tons and tons and tons of voters who were told Donald Trump is Hitler would do if they got those ballots? They're going to do it. And to help answer that question, in our investigations, it was very clear that these people had been submitting these ballots that will tie into another question, but it absolutely would help. The fact that there are unsolicited requests going out is seeding the exploitation. If you are forced to request in person your ballot, then you're going to have to show some kind of ID. You're going to have to match your signature right then and there. You're going to have to be who you are. When somebody requests it, that alone helps to mitigate this stuff, because the unsolicitation is where you're expanding the pool of potential fraudulent votes. You're making them accessible to people with bad intentions, and doing away with that automatically, inherently, it's built into the system. It inherently prevents something from happening, and that goes into Lamp Crow's question: ballots pre-requested, or our names. Are they pre-requested and this is done ahead of election day? Or are they basically crossing off names at 1 a.m. and filling them out in real time? Years ago, Lamp, that's what they would do. They would basically look for the potential, have them ready to go, see how many they would need. And 15 people in the Pitney Bowes room in Broward County kind of thing would sit there and try to oh, crap. This time, what they did was basically give them 60 days. In many cases, Laura will tell you, I will tell you, those dates were submitted. This had been in place for a long time. You would see some of these submissions going to September, definitely all through the month of October. And they were banked. In states like Michigan, they were banked and ready to go. They didn't know if they would have to use them, and I imagine would not have if they, I don't know. I wasn't there. But what we saw could never have happened without the at least turning a blind eye, if not active participation of public sector unions.
Well, and I think it's just a basic human nature thing, Rich. I mean,
yes.
Are you more likely to perpetrate a crime like this if all you have to do is send something out in the mail, or if you have to go in person and interact with people who are officials, who are in a position where they can bust you and they can do things? All you got to do is look at social media, the keyboard warrior thing, right? People say things in the privacy of their own home, not that they would say to somebody's face if they're personally interacting with them.
Totally agree. And it is basic human nature. And, even before, like I've said to people before, these laws are in place for a reason. They were put in place for a reason. And as John Adams said, if all men were angels, we wouldn't need laws. So the idea that you could just wipe away all the protective measures and it's going to be the most secure and, credible is asinine. It goes against every piece of Western literature and logic and reason and philosophy. And I mean, all the going back to freaking Plato. I mean, this is, read a book is all I got to tell these people.
One last thing. The underlying principle of any leftist is the ends justifies the means. They think they're doing a good thing for the country, even for you, if you're politically on the other side of it.
As Tom Narn, the heir apparent to Marxists, in academia, that is how they believe. Correct. The ends justify the means. So it doesn't they're the heroes. They're not the ones breaking the law. They're they are the salvation to society by doing something wrong. And that is their mindset. And I want to get through two real quick before we give you, don't go anywhere. We got to taste the Don show and you're not going to want to miss it. And I want to just blaze through two questions real quick so we don't. Do Rich and Don think that we will see further intrusions into the economy by the government during the Biden administration and similar policy ideas to like FDR as things continue to worsen? Things like price controls and other socialist policies, new expanded administrative state with more power over people's lives, all things that will make a recovery slower or make it worse. Go ahead, Don.
Yes.
That's a simple way.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, just look at the pandemic, right? Look what they're doing. These people, it's always about money, power, and control and votes. They want to control things because that's the power. That's where they get the money. That's, of course, they're going to continue to expand things, and it's going to be sold to you as it's for your own good.
That's right. Price controls are for
That's
you.
how they do it.
They're
Yes.
for you. Robert Higgs, we always talk about it. I call it a seminal work because it is. Crisis and Leviathan. Higgs would say they do it on purpose. It's intentional. Create the crisis, inflation, and then propose the solution. And they will never give you that power back. They will take that they change the nature of the social contract forever. It's not going back. So you can't let them do it in the first place. And by the way, FDR, he's praised as some kind of hero. One of the biggest whoopings in a midterm election came because of the Great Deal. It was not popular. It was not popular. Let me say this again. The New Deal was not popular. The idea that it is some kind of great achievement in American history is a work of fiction by revisionist historians that got their butts kicked. What remains of it now, Social Security, which you know is old age insurance and other things like that, are all that remain. The New Deal was much bigger than what we know it to be today because they got their butts whooped and Congress ripped it away from him and the Supreme Court ripped it away from him, which is when he tried to pack the court. So, I mean, history of FDR, very, very different than what you hear of it today. He himself was, but the policies were not popular. And have we ever tried to segment Black voters from African immigrants in our polling in Minnesota? That's it. But yeah, typically in states that have larger Black populations, if you go back and look at the Twin Cities battleground poll, whatever it was called in 2020, we had a Biden plus 12, I think, or something. We did segment, Somali. Where were you? What was your national origin? We did that for Black voters in Minnesota, but I don't know, Don. Sometimes the Black populations just aren't big enough to do that.
Yeah, that's kind of tough to break that out, but it's a great question. I mean, especially with what we're seeing at the border, because every time they report on that, again, it's not just people coming from the triangle. Countries are coming from all over the world. Africa is one of the biggest contributors to what's going on at the southern border. So yeah, I think it'd be even more interesting as time goes by to start looking into stuff like that.
It looked like you wanted to add something too before to that. Was there something else you wanted to add to that prior question, or no, you're good?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's two examples right now that if the government, if they thought they could get away with it, they would do it in a heartbeat. That would be nationalizing the banks. Why do you think they talk about that stuff all the time? The person they were going to put in charge of the Fed Reserve, I mean, that would, we know where that goes. But also the oil and gas industry. If they could nationalize that today, they would do that in a heartbeat. And I think you got to look at what's going on with the new industry. They're trying to create this new green energy thing where they're going to create this stuff. I think that would be one area where they would look to nationalize too. All you got to do, Venezuela and anybody, look it up, Google Venezuela, what happened when Chavez took over and nationalized the gas and oil industry. They used to be one of the biggest producers in the world and it just destroyed it. So I think those are some examples of things they would like to go after.
And it's not an industry, but come January, folks, after the new year, when they come back right before they start to campaign again, you will see them try to federalize elections again. That is their plan. Because now it's about, it was a two-prong effort to stop the losses they know are coming. And one was redistricting, and now that's underway. The second one is an attempt to keep all these exploitation measures that we are talking about, in fact, make them illegal for states to implement verification procedures. Voter ID is going to be illegal if they succeed. Down to the T. I mean, they'll force states to spend money on drop boxes. Their plans are terrifying. and they will bring us into a permanent third world election system, and it'll do it all under the guise of voting rights. And it's a total sham. All right, Don, what do you got coming up, buddy? I want to actually go ahead and you tease it, and then I'll play the clip.
Well, yeah, we got a lot of great stuff coming up tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we want to kick off the new year right. So 2022 start right out with some great stuff. Had an opportunity to sit down with Congressman Andy Biggs. I think he is one of I think he is just a warrior. I think he's a great guy. I really like him. He's a sensible guy, but he gets the communication aspect of things. So, and I think you'll see that in that interview. So we talked about the vetting of Afghan refugees. We talked about the southern border. I mean, he's calling for an investigation into Mayorkas. He wants him to answer some questions regarding that. We talked about the thing that I've brought up, and I think you and I even discussed it once as well, was the difference on how they view the illegals coming across the border. So why did they want to stop people from the triangle countries, or not stop them? They want to welcome them in. But if you remember, when Cuba became a thing, there was all this stuff going on in Cuba, they were dead set against any of them. He said, you will not step foot on American soil. So we talked about that, and I was curious to see how he would react to that, and he reacted the same way you and I did when we talked about it. He gets it. So love Andy Biggs, great guy. Of course, we'll have you on the program. We've got Peter Hussey, who's got some really cool stuff to kind of close out the year. So we're kind of closing out the year, but also kicking off 2022 with a bang. And so hopefully you guys can join me, donsmithshow.locals.com tomorrow at noon, every Saturday at noon, and join us in the chat. There's always good stuff going on in there too.
Let's roll that clip. Let's check it out, guys. Here's a preview.
Hey, hope you guys all had a very Merry Christmas, and hope you're going to have a great new year as well. We will be here back on the air Saturday, January 1st. 2022. Wow, that's weird to say. So hope you will join us. We will be back. We have some amazing guests. As always, we have my good friend Rich, the People's Pundit Barris. We have Peter Hussey, who is the president of Strategic Analysis, with the latest on the national security threats around the world, and Arizona Congressman Mr. Andy Biggs. We got into some really cool stuff with Congressman Biggs, and I think you'll really appreciate where he's coming from with these things. So I appreciate everybody watching. Check us out, donsmithshow.locals.com, and we will see you this Saturday and every Saturday at noon Eastern Time. Thanks.
Am I on it? Okay. I thought I clipped it off too early. There it is. So check it out. And I'm going to watch that one when Andy Biggs went and get off. Am I coming on before the interview with Biggs, right?
Yep.
All right. So I'll just stand fast and listen to it, even if I stay in the. So if you see me staying in the chat, in the green room, whatever you want to call it, the online grid, that's what I'm doing. All right. Yeah. And I guess with that in mind, don't forget to follow Don. He's still on Twitter at Don Smith Show 2, because this is like his third Twitter account. Yeah. And I mean, look what they did with Malone, man. I mean, this is crazy. You can't have a scientific consensus without dissenting views being allowed to be vetted. I mean, it's crazy, man. It really is. The good news is that most people see it for what it is. We've been asking that everywhere, and nowhere, even in liberal districts, nowhere have we found people say that these efforts are really to like engage civil society and ensure that it's like safe for everyone to have you. Nobody believes that. And so, there are people who do, but no majority or close, even it comes close to a majority, believes that. That's the good news. Going into 2022, there are bright spots.
Can I say one other thing?
Absolutely.
This is really important right now. What's going on? We talk about the question about nationalizing things, and will the government do this and the administration do these things? It's also the corporations that are starting to do this thing. And so it's a little different when corporations do it. What I'm talking about is shutting people out. Free speech. So email marketing is a big thing for political candidates. It's a big thing for businesses, for people who have maybe a religious book.
Yep.
And that is under attack right now, Rich. And a lot of people aren't talking about because there's so many other things to talk about. But so I did start a new business, and you kind of helped me get that. I appreciate all your help on that.
Anytime.
We are going to support and make sure that people don't get shut down. I run house lists. Part of my thing is communications, send out mailings to people and keep them apprised of what's going on inside the campaign. We're getting shut down on that. So I'm talking the MailChimps and the constant contacts and all these things. They're saying, you know what, we really don't like what you're saying here, so we're not going to let you use our platform. So we started our own platform. We got our own servers. We got our own place. So it's firstamendmentmarketing.com, just up and running now. And we are going to make sure that people have the opportunity to get their messages out to the people that want to hear those messages. And just wanted to mention that, because every time they try to shut us down, Rich, Americans, what we do is we innovate and we create an alternative to where we don't need them. And that's what we're doing there.
And and there was a New Yorker article with Dan Bongino working in other spaces where they just smeared the hell out of Dan Bongino for doing this. And even someone like a leftist, like Greenwald, said this is a good thing. So it's like, God, it was such a predictable smear job in that article. And it was hilarious what Dan Bongino said. He said, you know what? Frankly, it doesn't really matter what the hell you say, because there's nothing you can say that I can't come back and whack you 4 times fold on. Why? Because I dwarf you. My reach you're a nothing. He told the New Yorker, basically, nobody reads your crap anymore. He said, so like, you can't win. This is asymmetrical warfare and you can't win. I was my pants laughing so hard when I read that. Good for him. And that's what you're doing with First Amendment marketing, because people are running into issues like, well, it could be a campaign. It could be an ad for a book. You want to let people know about your new book you released or whatever. You're running into these issues, and you know what? You are evolving and you're creating a solution to a problem that they created. And by the way, every time they do this, they just, like you said, they make people more innovative, and exactly. The history of this is clear. It never works. It may work in the short term, and clampdowns, they may work in the short term, but in the end, the human spirit will thrive, man, and they lose, and that's it. Then they lose. No, they can't really point to any example of them winning, not in the long term, anyway. So it's great what you're doing, Don. It is. So anytime, and don't forget me to get socials. Get me those socials.
Yep.
All right. All right. Cool, man. Well, as always, Don, thanks, my friend. As always, I know you hung around like 20 minutes overtime, and I appreciate it.
Well, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you have a safe one. Tonight, as you talked about, it's dangerous to be out there, so be really careful.
Yeah.
And we look forward to a great 2022. We'll have to fight through all the stuff with this administration, but it is what it is, and we'll stick together and we'll fight it out. So Happy New Year, everyone.
You too, my friend. Happy New Year. Have a happy one and a safe one. We'll see you soon. We'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
All the best. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Smith, Don Smith Show, donsmithshow.locals.com, donsmithshow.locals.com. And don't forget to check it out tomorrow, because it's going to be super cool with me in it. As always, right? I'm always a good segment, but I'm waiting to see Andy Biggs, who, like Don said, is he seems to get it. And when we were talking about who represents the Republican Party in the leadership in Congress and who would replace somebody like a Kevin McCarthy and the Paul Ryan joke of a leader, Andy Biggs is a likable guy. People like him. The base likes him. He would be somebody that is, somebody would put forward, as much more representative of the Republican base than what they see now. Democrats have people who represent them. Republicans do not. And Andy Biggs is certainly somebody who wouldn't be like the current leadership, I guess. If you even want to call it leadership. I don't know the word, because they're not really leaders. They're not. They're reactors and followers. They're not leaders. All right. With that in mind, I'm going to get going. I know it's kind of late. Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you so much for the growth that we have seen this year, especially on the locals community, which I will talk to you guys more about in a little bit. On our way to a goal where public polling project is not, only, we could still keep it. Some funds can go out to the public, but where locals funds it. And I think if we did this well this year, then I'm very optimistic next year during an election cycle that we'll be able to get there and hold it and maintain it. And Laura and I really do love and appreciate all of you for it. We really, from the bottom of our hearts, cannot tell you enough. We do this because, like Don said, we feel like an obligation to do it, but we would not be able to if it wasn't for you guys. And you're helping us live that dream, as I always say. So, God bless you all for it. All right. I'm not a sentimental kind of guy, but we love you for it. We do. All right. Follow me on Twitter still at peoples_pundit, on Getter at Peoples Pundit, where you can see where Laura's profile. You can follow her too. Maybe we'll have something. I think I'm on the precipice of convincing Laura to do. Laura is right. I think she's much more open to this idea, which would be super cool. And of course, if you like the videos and you watch on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. Same thing on Rumble. Give us that plus, right? And subscribe. That Rumble I see is building up pretty decently, and that is connected to Locals now. Makes it really easy to become a member of the Locals community at peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. With that in mind, last thing I just pitched, merchandise is there. If you want to grab a shirt, a hoodie, whatever it may be, it's represent.com/People's Pundit. I'm going to wear mine as soon as I get it. Represent.com/People's Pundit. Show that you know. All right. That accuracy matters. All right. That's it. The last show of the new year, episode 221. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? The last episode of 2021 is 221. I thought it was funny. All right. Hate to see it go, but next year we'll hope for better things, bigger and better things, as always. Be safe, but enjoy yourself. Happy New Year from the Barris family to all of you. Bad Habit, the Bowen Band. See you guys soon.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me.